Now, if we jump ahead another 80 years or so in Italy, we come across a composer by the name of Giovanni Gabrielli, and he's probably one of the most important composers for wind instruments and brass instruments of the day, anyhow. And well, we're not going to play any Giovanni Gabrielli today, but what we're going to do is play a contemporary of his over in Germany, and this is the composer Samuel Scheidt. Now, I don't know how many people have heard of Samuel Scheidt before, but he was about 100 years before Handel, and born in the same place, Halle, Germany. And so 100 years before Handel, the next piece that you're going to hear was a popular type of piece, and that is a canzona, and Gabrielli was perhaps the champion of the canzona. And but we're gonna play one by Scheidt, and this is Canzona Bergamasca. A Bergamasca is a dance from northern Italy, and from Bergamo. Is anybody? Am I saying that correctly? Is anybody? Yeah. Okay, I'm saying it correctly. Because Brent knows. He knows all. And so here we go with the. You'll notice that there's. You're going to hear a melody at the beginning, and what Scheidt used to like to do was to use variations in meter. So we're going to start off in duple meter, or in 2, and then we're going to go to a section in triple meter, and you'll hear the same melody, a little bit slowed down, but it's nonetheless, it is the same melody that you heard right at the very beginning of the piece. Then we go right back into the duple meter. So this was something that Scheidt was fond of, and here we go with the Canzona Bergamasca.
moving on to a little bit later into the past 1685, which, and if any of you recognize that date, that's the date that J.S. Bach was born. Bach wrote an enormous amount of music and almost has as many children as he wrote pieces of music, somewhere in the region of 23 children, but I think you could put a zero or a couple of zeros on that actually for the amount of music that he wrote. Bach developed the canon much further into what we call the fugue. And Bach wrote many fugues, of which you might know some famous ones such as Toccata and Fugue in D minor, which is used for many murder films and horror films and things like that. So we're going to move into Bach. First of all, we're going to play a piece, an air, which had been written for two instruments contrapuntally. It's counterpoint, means point against point. So one player following the other player, and then vice versa. And that will take us nicely into the fugue, where in a fugue you develop a subject. A subject is announced, and then that subject might come back a little bit later, a couple of bars later, in the dominant, and then progressively throughout the piece that's developed. It becomes more complicated as we get all sorts of development. So you'll hear the fugue, and you hear the subject come throughout the piece. So now we're going to play the air by Bach, and followed by Contrapuntus 9 by J.S. Bach.
Thank you. The last note that I played, incidentally, was a really, really low C. I think there's a shock wave heading over to Detroit right now from the water here. I suppose if Bach's music could be considered to be sublime, the next piece could be considered to be ridiculous. And it's an interesting piece called The Lone Arranger, and it's called an arranger, I guess, because it's an arrangement of a group of pieces. It starts out with that very famous fanfare trumpet call at the end of the William Tell Overture, which was written by Gioacchino Rossini, a famous Italian opera composer from the 19th century. And it starts off with that, and then we get into a little bit of the Camptown Races by Stephen Foster. I was listening a little bit to it last night. This is the first time I played this arrangement, and it was my job to sort of count the number of tunes that were in this. So our first concert was on Friday night, and so I took my book with me to dinner, and I was looking through my part to sort of find out, what melodies were in this piece. Not realizing, of course, that, the tuba has absolutely no melody whatsoever in the piece. So we're a little bit of a loss to know exactly how many tunes there are in this arrangement. But trust me when I say there's a little bit of the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto that I heard last night. There's a bit of the Karelia Suite by Sibelius for a couple of bars. There's snippets here and there. We probably should have figured this out beforehand. We probably should have awarded a prize to the person that got the number of tunes right. Free tickets to a series or something like that. But unfortunately, we didn't get it together soon enough. Anyway, we present for your enjoyment the Lone Arranger.
anybody count the number of tunes? Oh, wait, we have a... Yes.
12.
8?
12.
I had 8 in my part alone.
12.
12. That's probably approaching. Somebody said 38 last night. So unless you come up with 39, I can't give you anything. Anyway. 30. Smart aleck. Okay. Now, from the well, I can see that by the by the generous applause that you are consumers of fine music, yes, and connoisseurs. Well, when we're doing these are some of my favorite types of concerts anyway. I mean, we all do symphony orchestra stuff, obviously, because we're all members of the Windsor Symphony Orchestra. We play, some of us get to play shows. We play ballets sometimes. We accompany ballets. We get to do nightclub shows, for some well-known acts and for some not so well-known acts. Sometimes we're backing up a country singer, which is kind of cool too, But for me personally, one of my favorite types of gigs to play are these actual concerts in the park because, well, for one, they're free, so I don't have to pay. I don't have to pay to get in, which is really nice. But the other thing is that it reminds me of a time before I was born. Okay, let me try that again. It reminds me... No, it can't remind me, right? It makes me think of a time long ago when this sort of thing happened all the time, where there would be a concert band in the gazebo, and everybody would come and enjoy the marches and the waltzes and all that kind of stuff that drifts through the air. And one of those bands that used to do that quite a bit and was one of the most popular bands was the John Philip Sousa Band. And he, he was probably one of the most prolific writer of marches. And I think he wrote over 100 marches. Is that right, Ross? Yeah. Over 100 marches for sure. And so we're going to play for you the Liberty Bell. And just on a side note, I mean, when in 1976, I was touring with the Windsor Guardsmen Drum and Bugle Corps. Does anybody remember them? Oh, there's somebody who remembers them. And we went to Philadelphia because the Drum Corps International Championships were in Philadelphia. And of course, you buy little souvenirs and stuff. So I bought this little Liberty Bell, and it had a crack in it. So I had to bring it back. Okay, well, I tried. All right, so this is the Liberty Bell March, and hopefully you can close your eyes and pretend that there's something, a concert in the park with the Sousa Band.
actually remember that song as the theme from Monty Python. That's my experience with it. What we're missing is the giant foot to come down. If we could have gotten an inflatable foot, I would have loved it. Just as a reminder, if anybody hasn't filled out any ballots yet, you can get them from the table there, and they'll be collected, and then there will be a draw. So if you get a chance to win something free, then now's the time to hopefully do that. Now our next piece is by an extremely influential composer who I'm sure you've all heard of, Claude Debussy. He's from Paris, France, and he went to the Paris Conservatory. But he completely changed music going into the 20th century. It was a huge influence on many, many, many composers after that, including Aaron Copland, who was coming up in this program. This piece was actually written for piano as part of a set of preludes. Many, many composers written lots of piano preludes, but this one was a complete departure. Throughout music, people have always written with sort of harmonic flow and ideas of development of themes and a beginning, middle, and end, and cadences and a structure where we all understand what's happening and you can sort of sense what's happening. But Debussy completely rejected that. He never wrote any pieces like that at all. He just completely put on the brakes and said, I'm not doing any of that. Completely changed the way that chords were used and sounds were used, and it brought in lots of instruments from different cultures. And what he was actually trying to do, he was heavily influenced by symbolist poets and impressionist painters. And what he was trying to do was present a piece of music as a picture. So it's like more of a soundscape, like a painting in sound. And that's why when you hear these little snippets of melody, they're never actually developed. They change color and they come in a different place. But it's as though you're looking at an image of music in time. So it requires a different kind of listening to this sort of music and also a different type of playing. So this is The Girl with the Flaxen Hair from the first book of Preludes from 1909.
We're not using numbers. We're not using numbers.
So whatever Debussy was doing in France, Holst was doing exactly the opposite. The next piece that we're going to play is by Gustav Holst. It's the second suite in F. So for me, this is grade 8 band. When I was a little bit short, well, no, actually the same size. In grade 8, we start. My first piece that I had to play with band was the second suite in F, and so playing it with these guys is well, actually a lot better. This is a piece in 4 movements. What Holst had in mind here was to give you a sense of the British Isles and the wonderful folk songs that come from there. So we're going to start with a march, which Rupert will play a really beautiful solo in, and then we'll play a slow movement. The second movement is quite lovely. It's actually a love song, and I think it's between Phil and Rupert. So there might be something going on. I'm not sure. And the third movement is from the shop of the blacksmith. So you hear a lot of banging on anvils, and then I get to play a solo in the last movement, and I'll let you figure out which tune it is, but it's pretty famous. So I hope you enjoy it. This is Holst's second suite in F.